Okay, so I have never been more fascinated while also confused and at the same time wildly entertained all at the same time. I always knew that French people were good at making delicious pastries. I did not know that they could make me feel several different emotions all simultaneously. And that gives me hope that I can still learn new things in my old age. It's not a lot of hope, but it's all the hope I have left. Just let me have it, people. Cue the music. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? How you doing? Welcome back. So for this one, we're talking about a little French action movie called Rogue City. Or at least that's what they're calling it for the American distribution, because if you watch the film, the actual title card says Bronx, and I'm not entirely sure why. Because as far as I know, the Bronx is just a neighborhood in New York, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't have any like French connotations to it, but I'm a little rusty, so maybe I'm wrong, because I was never obscenely fluent in French, but I'm far less now than I was before. So if anybody knows anything about that, please hop in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious. But enough about the title. The overall plot of the movie, it kind of centers around this small unit in a police department in France. And the movie is a little muddy as far as the execution and the plot, but it essentially follows this small unit of guys as they handle a lot of gang-related incidents. And the movie shows this unit kind of navigating through a couple different mafia groups, and they're kind of vying for power. And it covers a lot of the motivation, a lot of the corruption, a lot of the ins and outs. There's a lot of different parties that are involved in the movie. This movie is like a much more serious version of a Guy Ritchie movie. So it's like a more serious version of like a Snatch or a Rock'n'Rolla. And I found that to be kind of fun personally, trying to figure out the motivation of every little character and who their allegiance lies to and how deep the kind of corruption rabbit hole goes. It was like a scavenger hunt in that way. Because in actuality, none of the characters are 100% good and none of them are 100% bad. And that is really indicative of like real life, because I don't believe anybody is 100% of anything. But trying to figure out everybody's balance and where they stood, that was interesting to me for some reason. I don't know. I will admit though, even for me, during like the second quarter of the movie, it did get a little confusing as to what was going on. But very quickly in the beginning of the film, I was pretty much on board, because there's like a 2-minute kind of stinger scene that happens at the very beginning. And then the first full scene in the movie is essentially the small unit of cops. They're transporting a prisoner from one jail to the next. But in between jails, they make an unscheduled visit to a hospital, and immediately that piqued my interest, because I'm like, okay, cops shouldn't be doing that, nor do they ever do that. So like, what's all that about? I don't know what's gonna happen next. I don't know, I'm curious. So I got pretty invested very early, so that might be why I'm willing to overlook the confusing part, and because I was into it. And like I said, I'm not nearly as fluent in French as I used to be, but for the most part, I thought the acting was pretty solid and believable, because I felt all the emotions that the actors were emitting on the screen. Another thing that seemed pretty good was the music, because I don't remember most of it, and that means that it blended well with the film. Although, with the exception of one scene though, this movie did that thing that a lot of films do where they cut off all the sound and all you hear is just the soundtrack. For some reason, I'm just a sucker for when movies do that. Like in a random movie, if there's some kind of shootout but you don't hear anything, you just hear this operatic violin or something. Like I just eat that shit up. And I personally thought all the action scenes were good. I'm sure they could have been a little better, because, I mean, let's be honest, every movie could be just a little bit better most of the time. But depending on the situation, I thought all the action scenes, they were well-timed, well-paced, and just the execution was very well done, in my opinion. Because none of the action scenes took too long to, get it over with, and any of the shorter action scenes, they were short for a reason, because it was like a drive-by or something like that. And another cool thing was that some of the characters have similar motivations, but there's such a diverse array of different character traits. That also was another like added kind of layer to the movie, because some characters are like being blackmailed, some characters are just lazy, some are just in it for the money, and the movie kind of examines as many angles as it possibly could, which again might turn people off. The more I think about it, I feel like this should have been kind of a mini series, because it's very Game of Thronesy with the number of characters they throw at you and the number of names you have to memorize. But once you pick up on who's who and what they're trying to do, then everything just kind of fell into place for me. Because just from Googling, it seems like not a lot of people were into this movie, and I was that kind of bummed me out. Because by the time the climax of the movie happened, like my jaw was on the floor. I was like, oh, this is sick. Because the ending of this movie is straight up awesome. Like, say whatever you want about this movie, and like, it's confusing, there's too much going on, but just the ending, I did not see coming at all. But overall, guys, suffice to say, I was thoroughly entertained by this movie, even if you kind of have to turn your thinking cap on a little bit. And despite some of the confusion in the movie, I really had a lot of fun. So I think for a score out of 10, I think for now I'm gonna give it like an 8.5. I personally am definitely gonna watch this movie again at some point. I don't know if this is quite gonna be everybody else's cup of tea, but if I were to draw a comparison, this movie is kind of like that Keanu Reeves movie Street Kings mixed with Guy Ritchie, but with like a little bit of Heat sprinkled on top and then a little bit of Godfather on it too. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Have you guys seen this movie? Have you heard of it? Do you know where the word Bronx came from for the title? Hop in the comments. Let me know what's up. Other than that, if you like this review, do the usual, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, do all the other YouTube-y stuff, and I will catch you guys next time.